Dear beloved, I welcome all of us this morning. It's already a beautiful fall season, and I pray that God's heart will keep us secure, and the colors and the rays that's in the season today may be colorful for us today as well, as God continues to lead us and keep us safe in His Word. Today, the second part of our Winter Koinonia Rediscover Christmas, I've titled the message, All This Took Place to Fulfill What the Lord Had Spoken. It comes from Matthew chapter 1, verse 22 to 23, and it says this, All this took place to fulfill what the Lord had spoken by the prophet. Behold, the virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and they shall call his name Immanuel, which means God with us. Dear beloved, do you have memories and recollections of your Christmas when you're young? The memory that I still keep to this day, something that I remember, is the Christmas that I had when I was young. I remember that my parents promised a beautiful present, a beautiful toy that I would be very excited to get. And it was much before Christmas. Now I know as a grown-up why the parents had promised such a toy well before Christmas Day. But for me as a child, when I heard the promise and I was waiting for the toy, it seemed like eternity. And as this eternity had passed, finally Christmas Eve came and it was time to receive the present. I was told that Santa Claus will come and give us presents. And we're very excited. We're looking at the door and constantly waiting, worrying if the Santa Claus was delayed or he just lost our address, and all these thoughts will go across my mind. Finally, the doorbell rang and Santa Claus, albeit a little bit awkward Santa Claus, came and gave me the present for Christmas. It was such a beautiful present, and it was such beautiful wrap, and it was such an exciting moment because there was Santa Claus and there was the present, and the promise was fulfilled on the day exactly as our parents had said. Why is it that the parents give so much effort, give so much time to prepare and to give to the child? Why is it that parents promise early in advance for this present that is to come? And I realized, number one, it's because the parents love their children very, very much. And so to help them, to let them know that there is joy coming, they can't wait. They want to tell the child, there's a present coming. It will make you very happy. It will make you very fulfilled. It will make your life bright. And the parents promise. And then as they deliver on the promise with a gift wrap, although it might be a little bit awkward at times, the child's happiness is complete. And that's why Christmas is a season of promise being fulfilled. Our God loves us very, very much. Even when we have sinned against Him, even when mankind turned against Him, God was so willing and ready to tell us that His redemption plan, the gift that He has prepared for us, was coming. That the moment that mankind sinned against God, God declared the promise. Genesis chapter 3 verse 15 says, I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your offspring and her offspring. He shall bruise your head, and you shall bruise his heel. It was already many thousand years before Jesus came. And yet, God, our loving Father, was so willing and ready to tell us the good news that redemption is coming, that salvation is near, that He told us well in advance. Already when mankind had fallen, that God came and told us of the good news. And He brought forth this gift through many different people who we know in the Bible were not perfect. And the fact that God chose imperfect people to bring His present to us reveals His heart and the quality and the meaning of the gift. You see, Matthew chapter 1 begins with the genealogy of Jesus Christ, starting from Abraham all the way down to Jesus Christ. And although there are a few people missing in this genealogy, Matthew decided to place important characters to denote the heart of God and the purpose that he has for bringing the gift of Jesus Christ to us through these people. You know, if you look at Abraham, he was not a perfect person. His life story shows us that he was even willing to sell his wife to protect his own. He mistrusted God's promise and decided to fulfill God's will in his own power. And yet God's grace covered his mistakes. And that reveals to us the quality and the character of the gift that is coming. There's also something that's very interesting about the genealogy that's recorded. Unlike the genealogies of the old, where they would usually record men and their names and straight down to their sons, the genealogy of Jesus Christ contained women. And not extraordinary, significant women. These people were in unfortunate circumstances, sinners, outcast, outsiders. Look at Matthew chapter 1, verse 3. It starts with Judah, the father of Perez and Zerah by Tamar. Tamar was the daughter-in-law of Judah. She was wedded to the first son of Judah. And when this first son had died, she was then wedded to the second son. You see, during this time, it was important to continue the lineage of the father and of the seed, because it was through the lineage the promise of God was to be fulfilled. And so it was rightful for Judah then to give another son to Tamar. And the third son, who was still very young, Judah said, wait until he grows old, and then I'll give it to you. I'll give him to you, Tamar, to be wedded and continue the lineage. But yet Judah was fearful. He thought Tamar was the problem of his son's death. So he decided to outcast Tamar and let her be somebody who doesn't exist in his life. And so what does Tamar do? Does she wait and trust in the Lord that he will deliver? She actually takes the problem to her own hand and commits something that's actually something that modern day we would consider as morally inappropriate. She sleeps with her father-in-law. And yet, Judah, and even the Bible records, her actions were righteous. You see, it wasn't that her action itself was righteous, but her heart before the Lord, God in his grace covers and promises Tamar that through Tamar will come the gift, the greatest gift, Jesus Christ. Look at verse 5. It says, and Salmon, the father of Boaz by Rahab. Who is Rahab? Rahab was a prostitute in the city that the Israelites were to go and take over. In the city called Jericho, Rahab lived. And her circumstances were very unfortunate. She was in the bottom rung of the society. People would treat her as materials, as goods, as just pleasure. And she must have lived a difficult life. When the Israelite spies came, she declared her faith to the spies, saying, I know what the Lord has done, and I want to trust in your God, and I want to protect you. Please remember me. God saw the faith of the prostitute Rahab, who was downcast and low, and he delivered up out of her distress and to bring her into the genealogy of the greatest promised, Jesus Christ. And the same goes with the same verse. And Boaz, the father of Obed by Ruth. Who is Ruth? Ruth was a person from Moab. If you know anything about Israelite history, Moab was an enemy of Israel. So she was an enemy for Israel. And yet she was brought into the fold of the genealogy of Jesus Christ as she declared, your God will be my God, your people, my people. She was willing to give up her past, her background, her everything to follow God. And in that humility, in that kneeling before God, God saw her faith and he accepted her and covered her in her grace. And finally, if you look at verse 6, we see David was the father of Solomon by the wife of Uriah. And this is something that we really need to go deep into, because Unlike the other woman that we just talked about, the Bible decides to not record her name, but the husband of her. Her name is Bathsheba. And David, in his prime years, when God has blessed him tremendously, he decides to sleep with a wife of another person, not just any regular person, but his most faithful general, Uriah. And as he slept with Bathsheba, he finds out that Bathsheba is pregnant. And unrepentant, David sends his most trusted general into the thick of the battle, and he causes him to die. And in that hardness of heart, God comes and he punishes and he brings justice to David and his family. What was the justice? First, God took the life of the son that was born between David and Bathsheba. And second, God declared that the sword will never leave the house of David. And this was revealed later by his other son, Absalom, causing a coup d'etat and causing David to run away for his dear life, constantly in fear, even in his latter years. But even though David had committed one of the most atrocious acts, sinful acts in the Bible, God still worked through David. And why is it that God did so? To show us that the present he was sending covers multitude of sins. David's sins is one of the most wicked sins recorded in the Bible, and yet God declared he will cover the sin. And so we find out about the type of the present that God is sending through the history narrative. He sends his trusted present through imperfect, incomplete, reckless, in an unfortunate situation, and a sinner of sinners. And God says, here is my present to you. And what is the present? Romans chapter 5 verse 8. But God shows his love for us in that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. The very love that Christ has shown us is the greatest gift that God gives to us in Christmas. Because it's Christmas. It's about Jesus Christ. It's about the gift that God has given through his Son. And this was to fulfill the very promise that God has given to us many thousand years ago, in the beginning at the Garden of Eden. And that's why in Matthew chapter 1 verse 22, our today's main passage says, all this took place to fulfill what the Lord had spoken by the prophet. Behold, the virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and they shall call his name Immanuel, which means God with us. In the long history of humanity, God promises in the beginning, because his heart and his love for us is so pure and so profound, that he wanted to show us that he is with us, that he desired to be with us. And he fulfills that promise in his day as he sends his son, Jesus Christ, to show us his love. And what is this love? What is this Immanuel that God is with us? Look at John chapter 10 verse 10. It says, the thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I came that they may have life and have it abundantly. It's abundant life today and for the rest of our lives and for all eternity, that through Christ our life flows with joy, with peace, with gratitude, with thanksgiving, with peace. That's why Matthew chapter 11 verse 20 says, come to me all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. You know, we have been given the greatest gift, and we have accepted this gift. We have opened the gift and we're enjoying the gift. And as those who have received the gift, first and foremost, God desires us to be the gift senders, like Abraham, like Tamar, like Rahab, like Ruth, like David and Bathsheba. We may have unfortunate circumstances. We may have our life's background be in an average, below average situation. We may be a sinner of sinners, but when we have met Jesus Christ, his grace washes away everything. And his blood covers our iniquities. And God says he is with us. And through us, the fingerprint of God that is instilled in our unfortunate circumstances, in our weaknesses, in our meekness, in our sadness. Those fingerprint is what God reveals to the people around us. 1 Peter chapter 2 verse 9 says, "But you are a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a people for his own possession, that you may proclaim the excellencies of him who called you out of darkness into his marvelous light." We're called to proclaim the excellencies of him who has called us into marvelous light. We are now of the light. And so this Christmas season, know that God's promise is with us and with everyone in this world. And he has sent souls our way so that we may share this greatest gift of all. And as we share, may you reveal the very fingerprint of God that is in our lives, that is shown that he may be glorified in our declaration.